to hold your breath. Don't be scared, don't be spooked, do not fear, we don't bite. Although those creatures come in droves, everything is spooky. Keep things light. Welcome to the welcome to the Valley of Jason, what should I review for the first movie of October? I already feel like I've been doing a bunch of slashers, but, I mean, honestly, people like them, so might as well do another one, but what to do? There's a Nightmare on Elm Street, Halloween, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. There's far too many slashers to do. Oh, what to do? Maybe I should do a more obscure movie. Yes, I realize that I've been doing a lot of obscure movies already, Jason, but come on, one of the points of my channel is to get people to see more of these obscure horror movies. I mean, yeah, there's the big ones that everyone knows about, like Saw, the Universal Monsters, and, you know, all the ones I just mentioned. Like, no one, I highly doubt, saw The Hollow. Okay, you might have a point there, but still, I really want to talk about more obscure movies as well as famous ones. Do you know what I think, Jason? Honestly, I think this might be a good idea. Personally, I think we should talk about scarecrow movies. Yeah, you know, those cliche things that come out every October, every fall, those things that you put on your porches, in your cornfields, basically, you know, scarecrows. But that's the funny thing, something that is so iconic for the fall season, I feel like they're not really given a lot of attention when it comes to horror movies. And if they are a thing, they're mainly kind of given more a background presence, like in the movie Jeepers Creepers 2, or one of the Annabelle movies. More something that an evil presence eventually takes over. There are not really a lot of scarecrow movies. And honestly, this kind of gave me the idea to do a little bit more research on the matter. And honestly, there are actually quite a few scarecrow movies. Yeah, they're not necessarily great, amazing horror movies, and they're not even really made by big, giant studios either. They're actually like really small budget horror movies. Even lower than most, actually. And trust me, horror can be pretty dang low budget. These movies were either made straight for television, straight for DVD and VHS, or were some part of like TV show kind of thing, like Goosebumps, for example. But there are a few, and like I said, not really theater worthy, but there are a few scarecrow horror movies, and I thought it'd be very interesting to talk about them. So for today's video, I really wanted to talk about at least a sort of scarecrow movie, you know, to kind of get things going. There are far more scarecrow-y movies than this one, but I just found this movie to be so interesting in how bad it is, I just had to talk about it. And that movie is The Legend of Halloween Jack. This movie is so bizarre in how bad it is. Simply just because it's like, it feels like almost no amount of quality was put into this movie. It really is just, I don't know how this got made. Well, you're gonna have to see for yourself. This is The Legend of Halloween Jack. Jason, where'd you put my remote? Why did you move it all the way over there? I told you to not move the darn thing, especially when we're doing reviews. Anyway, enjoy the movie. We're starting, oddly enough, with the credits, which, if we're starting with criticizing the credits, you know you're in for one hell of a ride with this movie. In the opening credits, it shows a lot of movie footage that are from movies that are in the public domain, which one of them is Plan 9 from Outer Space. If you're trying to make Plan 9 from Outer Space look scary, there's something wrong with you. What I think is funny about most of these movies is that they're arguably 10 times better than this piece of crap. The movie starts off with a court case against Jack Kane, who is on trial for 2 murders. There seems to be a lot of evidence against him, but Jack seems very confident that he's actually going to get off scot-free from these murders.
I have no choice but to move to dismiss the case.
He is a danger to us all.
Then perhaps the police should have read him his rights when they arrested him.
And that's why. Before we move on with this movie, there's one thing I really want to point out, and that's basically the sound editing. There are many points in this movie where just the sound is just completely off. It's either way too quiet in some areas, there's no sound at all, the sound just seems like it doesn't fit. Especially like in this court case scene, there's absolutely no audio coming out from the people who are watching, and they're all, you can clearly kind of see that they're, at least in some manner of speaking, mumbling, they're kind of moving around, like you would expect to hear something coming, but all the audio seems to be very off in like what you're hearing. It kind of takes you out of the element. I have to say the weakest part of this movie is definitely the audio design, the editing, and honestly some of the audio choices, which you'll see a little bit later down the movie. So anyway, Jack is set free. The people who are involved with the court case, mainly the victim's 2 family members, who I assume is the mayor, I'm guessing, and the sheriff all agree to bring justice upon Jack and kill him. What other way are you going to bring justice to a murderer who gets off scot-free? And because, the law failed them and blah blah blah, all that cliche stuff. So they go to his house, knock him out, put him on a pole and dress him up like a scarecrow, and say a few nasty things to him before killing him. And I have to say, they actually get right down to business. Ooh, I did not expect there to be CGI blood in this movie. The PlayStation 1 people would be very proud of that effect. You didn't even put bullet holes in him! What kind of lazy movie is this? If you're going to have a character shot to death, you might as well at least put some effort into, I don't know, maybe putting, like, some holes in his shirt, scissors. Very handy. Anyways, they all agree to not tell anyone of what they just did. They bury Jack, and then we cut to 1 year later, where we see the brother of the murdered girl drinking and driving. Kids, don't drink and drive. No, that ain't good. Where apparently he's driving to the scene where they kill Jack. He commits suicide, of which then he accidentally brings Jack back to life.
Life is just a dream for the dead.
The outfit's dumb. Anyways, Jack is back from the dead, and we find the sheriff. Oh, actually, I forgot. This whole movie takes place in England. Chief Inspector, whatever the hell his name is, basically is going along his daily routine, talking to his daughter. His daughter realizes that, he's basically out of it, especially this time of year.
I was thinking I could head over to the party. Could be fun. Do you remember that word? Fun?
I guess I haven't had much time for it lately.
So we cut to the father of one of the murder victims, and okay, so before I move on with this again, one thing I also have to mention, many of the scenes in this movie are completely skippable. Like, we think that they will add to at least some amount of character development, but these characters don't even matter in the grand scheme of the movie, they're literally there to just get killed. Or if they were supposed to have some amount of character development, they're not in the movie long enough for us to really care. By the way, he doesn't look old enough to... I'm not saying he doesn't look old enough to be a father, but according to what the murder victim looked like, he doesn't look old enough to be his dad. Just saying. We then cut to the sheriff talking to the mother of the guy who committed suicide earlier, as his sister was one of the murder victims of Jack. And something that I also want to bring up again, she does not look old enough to be the mother of this guy and this girl. Anyways, other than basically making the sheriff feel bad about everything, this scene is entirely pointless. We don't get anything out of it. Eventually cut to this guy who gets killed. And then, of course, we cut to... Oh my gosh. Look, England. I don't necessarily know what your version of a gangster looks like. Or, you know, a back alley guy who, you know, sells guns and stuff like that. But what the hell is this? This is the most non-threatening hipster gangster wannabe I have ever seen. Those suspenders do not belong in a guy like this. It's like this guy couldn't follow all the way through with being like a very cliche gangster, which, hey, at least that would have been better than just wearing incredibly colorful suspenders and a few facial piercings. Anyway, yada yada, more pointless scenes. The mayor doesn't necessarily believe that the guy who committed suicide did not tell his mother anything before he died, so he goes to her to ask if he said anything about Jack, if he ran away, or if he admitted to the four of them killing Jack before he went to go kill himself. And of course she says, no, you know, she doesn't know anything. And what does he do? Well, he kills her. That brings up another problem with this movie. None of these characters are likable. The main guy that we are supposed to kinda like is the sheriff, or at least root for him, because he's the only one who has at least some kind of, like, moral understanding when it comes to what's going on, but still, once again, with most of these characters, we're not given enough time to really be with them. It's just they're kind of there floating along with the plot, trying to move it along, and that's basically it. There's no time to spend time with the characters, really understand them, get any backstory or anything. It's just simply they're there to move the plot. And then going back to the mayor, he goes back to his house, of which he starts acting like a complete ass to his wife, which, yeah, I get. He just killed somebody. Pretty hardcore on top of that. And he's basically like,
you haven't finished the decorations, you've burnt the food. What have you been doing?
In fairness, I would be pretty dang upset if the Halloween decorations were not up either, but I don't think I would go screaming at my wife for that. So anyway, Jack enters the house, kills the mayor. At least I think it's the mayor. I don't even know. His character was mayor-like. Fairly well good and faithful servant to the town, I guess. And he eventually kills his wife, which I have to admit, this scene is at least a little bit suspenseful in how it is built and how he's behind her and kind of like toying with her without her even knowing he's behind her. This scene does have at least a little bit of merit to it. The police eventually arrive at the house, where the sheriff eventually tells the deputy that he and the three other men did actually kill Jack, and he didn't run away because they all thought that he was the murderer. Eventually, through a weird plot twist which just kind of comes out of nowhere, Jack was indeed innocent and did not kill those two people, but someone else actually admitted to the murders. It would have been nice to know about that earlier, rather than literally finding out now when we just kind of don't care at this point, since the movie's already almost over. The sheriff then tells his deputy to go get his daughter and to bring her to the police station, who the deputy is actually dating his daughter, which he also admits to. And then the sheriff then goes on this mission to go talk to a friend of Jack who was messing around with like the occult and whatnot, which apparently is how it turns out Jack could come back from the dead. So then we come to this Halloween party, which has been pretty hyped through certain parts of the movie, and oh my dear. So the sheriff goes to visit Jack's friend to basically talk to him about occult stuff, whether or not Jack knew it, or if he knew he could come back to life. And basically, Jack's friend explains to the sheriff,
the logical next step would be to take a leaf out of the druid's book and make a self-sacrifice to save your town.
So what does the sheriff do? Well, he just shoots the guy, of course. This guy was not coming on to you. He wasn't being threatening or anything, and you just decide to shoot him? World's greatest sheriff. Then we cut back to the awesome party that's going on, and guys, just get ready for one of the best scenes in this movie, and it's not because it's good, but because it's hilariously awful. Jack goes on a rampage, killing basically most of the party guests. So this scene should be one of two things. This scene should either be incredibly terrifying because of, you know, this killer killing all these people, or it should be like a, you know, like a BA killer scene, you know, like Jason in Freddy vs. Jason when he's in the cornfield. But no. So, I don't know if you were able to notice, but like I said, the main complaint in this movie is the audio and the choices they make for the audio. And when it comes to stuff like the killer impaling this guy on a chair, when it comes to any of the kills this guy performs, they're all minuscule sound bites. They're not grand, they're not disgusting, there's no vile crunch or stab or any kind of noise when it comes to this killer. So when you're watching him perform these kills, it's really lackluster, if anything. It's almost like you're building up to this amazing climax and the only thing you hear is, yay. It's the one guy who went to the theaters to see this movie. And he said yay because it was over. Anyway, after that, the deputy then tries to kill Jack. Jack doesn't die because this is a horror movie. Then Jack knocks out the deputy. The sheriff shows up, kills the guy. So of course he doesn't actually kill him. Of which then he doesn't say anything to his daughter or the deputy, just, you know, take care of my daughter. They run out. He locks himself behind to be the final sacrifice. That way Jack can finally be laid to rest. And blows up the school. Good job again. We then cut to 1 year later, where the sheriff's daughter is reminiscing over, oh my gosh, look, I know you guys are incredibly lazy with this movie, but this is a whole nother round of lazy. This is seriously just you going in Adobe Premiere and typing in the words over a tombstone. This is a whole new layer of lazy. And of course, because this is a horror movie, we get one more jump scare. And finally, the credits roll. Okay, guys, I know this is not necessarily the best way to start off Halloween, but I really had to talk about this movie, to be completely honest. I had to get it off my chest. This movie is the epitome of lazy, if not anything else. I understand that movies have a low budget and there are only so many things that you can do with a low budget, but there's low budget and then there's just lazy. The audio is incredible. incredibly just haphazardly and lazily done. The kills are just boring, and overall the acting, although it's not the worst thing I have seen in a movie, it is honestly pretty dang boring as well, with no character development, incredibly odd choices of casting when it comes to ages. Overall, just a very honestly laughable killer. This may be the story of a legend, but the only thing that this story is going to be remembered for is being legendary ridiculous. So that's the Legend of Halloween Jack, and I swear we're gonna get to some better Scarecrow movies, because, I mean, this one, okay, the guy wasn't even, like, really fully a Scarecrow, he just kind of, like, donned on the persona of, like, a Scarecrow kind of character, but I swear, there are definitely far better Scarecrow movies coming down the road. And next week, I'm actually going to talk about one that I heavily enjoyed. And just to kind of maybe give you guys maybe just a sneak peek, at least into the name, the movie is called Dark Night of the Scarecrow. I'm incredibly excited to talk about it with you guys, as there are definitely some really great elements about this particular Scarecrow movie. Anyways, this has been the Valley of Death, where everything is spooky, but we keep things light. See you guys later.